Okay, hello everybody, and welcome for another session on China today. So let me make a start. So let me share screen first. Okay, today we are continuing with our last discussion about China building mega policies or mega cities. So, and this time, I will be talking about China's another two planned megapolis. But before that, last time I was asked about Chinese parks, how people use the parks in China. So I decided that we will talk about Chinese parks in a session in third term. So I'm going to give you a glimpse of what life is look like in China in the parks.
Hi, I'm Nico and welcome back to another video. As you may know, my channel mainly focuses on China, and over the past couple of years, I featured my fair share of the towering buildings and vast cityscapes that people in the West most closely associate with China. But those of you who know me well will be aware that culture is the thing that really drives me to make videos. And if, like me, you are a guest here in this country, then the best place to learn about and observe China's culture is in the place where my own love affair with dancing aunties and eccentric uncles began. One of my favorite things to do in China is visit the parks. Perhaps my favorite place of all was the park area that surrounds the wall on all sides. You might think I'm crazy for falling in love with what essentially is a few paths, some trees, a pavilion, and occasionally the odd temple. But as I've already alluded to, it's what goes on inside these public spaces that is the biggest draw. Are you ready? Every city that I've been to in China has lots of fresh green spaces, which offer a welcome relief to their urban surroundings. I'm sure you know how hot China can get in the summer, but somehow a few trees and the odd lake can just make the summer heat a little bit more bearable. Or maybe it's the slower pace of life that exists within these urban retreats that help people to relax after a day spent in the city. Either way, the parks in China are the perfect place to de-stress, unwind, and let off some steam. You might think that the points I've made so far would apply to any park in any country, but I assure you, the parks here in China are very different to those back home. For starters, you often have to pay a nominal fee of a few RMB to gain entrance to some of the parks here in China. That means parks such as Jingshan Park or Beihai Park in central Beijing can actually feel like an attraction themselves. And when you think about the views offered over the Forbidden City in Jingshan Park or the cooling lake in Beihai Park, then for the equivalent of about 30 cents, this feels like pretty good value. There is a part of me that agrees with the argument that all parks should be free for everyone in society to enjoy. That being said, there are numerous free parks here in Beijing and in other cities, of course. But when you do have to pay, I feel like the entrance fee is really well spent. The parks here are kept in pristine condition, with armies of workers sweeping up the leaves during autumn, snow during winter, and blossom during spring, and ensuring that every lawn, tree, and hedge is perfectly manicured. Which brings me on to my next difference, the makeup of the parks themselves. Whilst parks in Europe tend to focus on bringing a more woodlandy vibe to the city centre, with rolling trees and big grassy plains, the parks in China feel more like miniature models that have been brought to life. Public parks have been springing up all over China since the late 1800s, often borrowing concepts from Chinese walled gardens, which have been enjoyed by China's elite for thousands of years, such as feng shui and an emphasis on the harmony between man and nature. And this harmony is easy to see nowadays, with China's parks being filled with ornate hideaways, carefully landscaped rock formations, and also wide open practical spaces, perfect for socializing and keeping fit. In the West, a lot of our socializing is done in the pub, which isn't really the healthiest of hobbies. But here in China, a lot of the socializing, especially in the older generations, takes place in the park. There is a common stereotype in the UK of a pub man, an often overweight and usually middle-aged or older man who sits in the pub all day. I guess China's equivalent would be the park man who sits in the park all day playing mahjong with his mates or practicing an instrument, singing at the top of his lungs, cracking a whip or showing his friends his pet birds. And for every park man, there is definitely a park woman. The activities that they like to do is square dancing with their friends, belting out karaoke tunes, and trying to find a potential suitor for their child at one of the infamous marriage markets.
Wow.
Some of these activities might seem a little eccentric, but anything goes here, and the parks here in China are a judgment-free zone. The seniors here seem a lot healthier, happier, and fitter, and I think we could learn a lot from their lack of inhibitions and their willingness to keep fit in their senior years. It's not just the older generation that benefits from parks, however. Many parks have running tracks and outdoor gyms for young professionals to keep fit in after work, and boating lakes to relax on at weekends. And families are well served too, with many of the bigger parks containing separate amusement parks within their boundaries to keep kids busy. This is particularly important as the vast majority of people in China live in high-rise apartments without gardens, and parks offer kids a safe space to play away from the busy roads of the city centers. Another reason why I love the parks is because of how varied they are. For example, here in Beijing, each park has a separate attraction. Some are great for activities and people watching, while others are great for enjoying nature. You might go to one park to see the water lilies in summer, or to another to see the sakura blossom in spring, or one which is more heavily forested to see the rusty foliage of autumn. One drawback that I personally experienced when we had Bonnie is that not a lot of the parks accept dogs here, and so they just won't let them in to preserve their perfectly manicured lawns. I found that some of the parks, like on the outskirts of the city, were more welcoming to dogs, so if you do have a furry friend, then try and head to one of these instead. Despite this fact, I would say that the parks here are generally pretty inclusive, which was apparent to me from the very first time that I stepped into a park here in China. I remember visiting this park, the Temple of Earth Park, the day after I arrived in Beijing. I was instantly treated to a delight for all the senses. All Beijingers were singing in the pavilion, The air was thick with the smell of freshly cut grass, and everyone around me was indulging in their hobbies in the spring sunshine. And still today, whenever I step into a new park here in China, I feel much the same way. They just fill me with this inner happiness. I love spending my time here. In the day, when I'm sweating and I'm hot. In the night, when everybody's out and about. The parks are the place to be. I hope you enjoyed this ode to China's parks as much as I enjoyed making it. Leave me a comment below and let me know what's your favorite park here in China. If you want to see more content like this and more behind the scenes stuff, then consider signing up to my Patreon. Also,
Okay, so that's a little glimpse of what the park in China's look like, and I will go into more details in the third term, and hopefully will give you a better idea what kind of parks are there in China. So today we'll continue to look at two regions where the Chinese have has planned to grow them into a large area. The first one, the second one is, of course, is around Shanghai, one of the economic center in China. So this is the Yangtze River Delta, is at the mouth of the Yangtze River. And it consists of 3 provinces plus Shanghai. So the 3 provinces is Zhejiang, Gansu, and Anhui. The first one is Jiangsu, have 50 million urban populations, around 64%. And then Zhejiang has a 64% urban population with a GDP with about 35 million people, and the Anhui has about 62 million renminbi. I haven't got the numbers there. 26 million people with a per capita GDP of about 44 renminbi, which is not much. So we can divide that by about 5 to get to our Australian equivalent. So we are talking about a year of income of around 9,000 Australians in Anhui. So it's not very impoverished area. Compare that with, for example, the GDP of Jiangsu, which is almost double that of the Anhui. The overall urbanization in China is around 53%. But when looking at this, we see that this is a more urbanized region. And this region accounts for about 20% of the China's GDP. It covers about 99,000 square kilometers and is home to about 115 million people as of 2013, and estimated 83 million is urban. It's based around the Yangtze River Delta. The area has a very fertile soil and is usually considered as the food basket for China for a long time, and therefore when in the say about 2,000 years ago, the emperor wanted to build a canal. One of the purposes is connect this region with Beijing in order to transport food from this region to meet the needs in Beijing, and that's one of the reasons why the Great Canal is was being built. So this area is a very fertile. Of course, even further south, the fertility is also very good. So this is almost at the boundary of the fertile land in the southeast of China. Transportation-wise, it has a number of airports there: Shanghai, Ningbo, Hangzhou, Ningbo, etc. And there are also plans to build another airport in Suzhou. And these are beautiful cities. Shanghai is very much modernized, Nanjing was one of the old capital during the Sino-Japanese War. Hangzhou is famous for its West Lake. Ningbo has very nice girls, and Shoujiao is also very famous for its scenery. In terms of railways, 5 major railways pass through this Yangtze River Delta. That includes the Shanghai and Nanjing Railway, Nanjing and Hangzhou Railway, Shanghai and Hangzhou Railway, etc. And there are more to be built as well. From Shanghai to an area in the dark color region, the line there, this is one long bridge. It is the longest bridge ever built in the world. Let me see whether, okay, it is 164.8 kilometers long, and it is a viaduct for the Beijing-Shanghai high-speed rail. It's the world's longest bridge as of June 2011. It was completed in 2010, and it employed over 10,000 people during the 4 years of construction and cost around 8.5 billion US dollars. This is a very long bridge around the fertile soil around it. So because if we're building such a long high-speed rail, if the rail is on the ground, that means there will be a lot of bridges to be built in order to link up the roads between the fields on the two sides of the rail. So instead, they decided to build on a bridge. In fact, this is much easier to do than building the bridge on land, because what they need to do is just put in the pillars, and then the rest is basically done in the factory, towed to the bridge, and then put it there. So it's much more efficient. So when this model is adapted, I think the Chinese has now started to adopt this way of constructing high-speed rail. This is another highway along the region. You see it is crossing the river. In terms of sea, a connection, 2 of the most busiest ports in China are located in this region. One is in Ningbo, another one is in Shanghai. The port of Shanghai is actually the world's busiest port in 2007, and I think it's still #1 in terms of its input and output, handling almost 500 million tons of container freights. Ningbo is the 4th busiest, handling 473 million tons of container, again in 2007. And there are also other ports, for example, in Landing, etc. This Shanghai port is a deep water port built out from an island. So looking at the map in the lower right-hand corner, the little circle there, that is the Yanshan port. So it is connected by a sea bridge to mainland, and Shanghai is around here, and so it is linked right outside there. And this is the totally autonomous port. So this is another diagram of this one. The port is right here, and that is built out from a couple of small islands, and then these are reclaimed areas. So they reclaim this area to make it into a big container area. The port is along this side, and then eventually I think they will develop on the other side as well. So this is a panorama of the port side. So the red cranes there are for unloading from ships, at the moment we can see a ship right here, another smaller. Is that smaller one? No, and there's another one right here, and there are a number of ships out waiting to come in the horizon. So it looks like this. So as I said, it's built on the islands, and then other lands are reclaimed. And the decision to build is made in 2001, and it is a construction of 4 phases. The first 2 phases consist of 9 berths for the ships, and the first phase opened in 2004, etc., etc. Okay, connected to the mainland via a 32.5 kilometer bridge. It is the busiest spot by cargo tonnage. Let me see.
港口的运行是叫自动化的装卸、智能化的生产，需要后面还这个把所有的指令、所有的信息把它收集起来，整理好了以后输入到我们计算机系统，然后呢由人工智能的由我们的智能系统变成一个个的作业指令发送给所有的这个现场作业的这些设备，然后现场作业的设备在无人的情况下面，他们实现了有效的、高效的、安全的自动化的运行。
No, you notice that the in the port there's no personnel on ground. They are all sitting in the office using remote control to unload and load all the container ships, and the container moving between the port and the storage area is also autonomous. No person driving it. So we can also see some operators operating the joystick, which she controls the loading and unloading of the container. Each of these operator will be operating about 4 cranes at the same time. So she's switching between cranes. Sorry? Is there a question? No? Okay, let's move on. Okay, of course, the major city in this Yangtze River Delta is, of course, Shanghai. This is a light scene of the Shanghai. The brighter, larger area is Shanghai. Historically, it was forced to open during the First Opium War, and then subsequently in 1842 and 1844, it was opened up to the West as a commercial center. Of course, the Communist Party took over the mainland in 1949. At that time, the trade was only limited to the socialist countries, so its influence in global terms declined. But as economic open up and its financial status also improves. It is one of the largest stock exchange in China after Hong Kong. Hong Kong Stock Exchange still have a larger trade volume than Shanghai, but Shanghai the trade volume is increasing very rapidly. I think Shanghai's trade volume will overtake Hong Kong within 10 years. This is the Shanghai Stock Exchange. At the moment, it is the 5th largest, but I think it will eventually become a #1 in the world. When that happens, I don't know, but it has the potential to become a very large stock exchange. This is a composite index. In 2000 and just before 2008, it has a stock bubble, and then of course the economic crash. So a lot of people have lost quite a bit of money during then. But aside from that, I see the Shanghai stock exchange progress quite healthily, except for that stock bubble. And then it also has started its future exchange. That means commodities, including foodstuff and their other commodities, of course, including oil. At the moment, Shanghai Future Exchange allows the trading of oil using renminbi. So there is a major political move in terms of China wanting to control its finance. It trades obviously all kinds of metal, including copper, aluminum, zinc, rubber, oil, gold, etc., etc. So it is the Shanghai Exchange is only started in before 2000, 1999. So it's only 20 years, 20-something years. And I think that they have a great potential to be one of the largest future exchange center in the world as well. But that remains to be seen. Not at the moment, it is just starting. How China will shake up the future market. There's an article about that, because as we know, at the moment, all oil is bought and sold in US dollars, but the China oil exchange markets will be buying and selling oil in renminbi. So that will be a big shakeup to the oil future market. Of course, China being one of the largest oil buyer, so it makes sense for them to have a international energy exchange within the Shanghai Future Exchange in order to allow the buyers in China to access the future market in a more efficient way. So the oil commodity exchange started trading on the 2018 March 26. So a lot of people say China want to whistle the oil pricing from major international benchmarks, which are based in dollars. So nominating oil contracts in yuan will promote the use of China's currency in global trade, one of the country's key long-term goals. So if I have an opportunity, I will talk about the financial policy of China, but that will be another later talk. So what is future contract? Future contract means fix the price for a delivery in a later date. So that will allow the buyers and sellers to avoid risk in fluctuation of price. Okay, the other major city around this region includes Suzhou, which is with a lot of canals, and the city lives around the canals. This is one of the like scenes with the little boats traveling along the river. Many of them are for tourists today, but it used to be the main transport for foodstuff from the southern region of China to the northern region, because it is very overly loaded with lots of canals, which can be used for heavy commodity transportation. And Suzhou is a prefecture level city with a population of only 4.33 million. And total residents is about 10 million. So it's not a very large area, but it is a beautiful, beautiful city. Its economy is basically on manufacturing. It is China's second largest manufacturing, including iron and steel, IT, electronics, textile, etc. Hangzhou and this region is very famous for its ability to make very good silk products. Wuxi. Wuxi is another old city. Again, you can see a canal there. Is again because in the Yangtze River region, there's a lot of cities with canals, because basically the Grand Canals connect to this region. So there's a lot of canals in the region anyway. Historically, it is center of textile manufacturing. And nowadays, it is the major centers for photovoltaic companies and also bicycle manufacturing and so on. So it again is a industrial-based city. Hangzhou. Hangzhou is one of the most beautiful city in China. It is a lot. The distance between Hangzhou and Shanghai on a high-speed rail is 45 minutes. So a lot of people who cannot afford living in Shanghai can opt to live in Hangzhou. Hangzhou is also UNESCO listed World Heritage Site is West Lake. Of course, it is its best known attraction. This is one of the photo of the West Lake. Another photo of West Lake. And in China, you can always see some kind of tower like that for scenery. In the old days, this is the restaurants where guests can come in, have tea, etc. But now they are all converted into observation towers. So people pay a fee to go up and walk around. Another tower there. And that's another light scene. And in the night scene, today's, of course, it is all lit up by LEDs. Hangzhou has very beautiful gardens. Okay, then we come to the Pearl River Delta. The Pearl River Delta is around Hong Kong here. Opposite Hong Kong on the River Delta is Macau, Zhuhai, and then Guangzhou is at the top here. So this region, the whole region, is also called the Great Bay Area or the Pearl River Delta. Now, next to Hong Kong is Shenzhen. This part is the main electronic hub of the hardware hub of the world. So this is another diagram. This one, we have Hong Kong here, Shanghai, Dongguan. Dongguan is where we used to get all our cheap T-shirts and shoes, but Dongguan had now converted itself into a high-tech area. Of course, Guangzhou has traditionally the city which opens up to the rest of the world, even when the whole China is being closed. And that's exactly the reason why when United Kingdoms want to get a hold on a port into China, they selected Hong Kong. Because at that time, the opposite side, Macau, was occupied by Portuguese. This is the expansive delta area lands around the Pearl River in the South China Sea. It consists of Guangzhou, Shenzhen, Dongguan, Foshan, Zhongshan, Zhuhai, Jingwen, and then the rest are smaller regions. Okay. In the 28 to 20 plan, released by the China's National Development and Reform Commission. It is going to become the center of advanced manufacturing and modern service industries. One of the very interesting thing is Shenzhen. Shenzhen is a completely new city built out of nowhere, and this city is only about 30 to 40 years old. So about 40 years old. And the city was suggested by the current President Xi Jinping's father when he was the party secretary of Guangzhou. And the idea was to leverage on Hong Kong's financial status as well as manufacturing, and build a manufacturing center next to Hong Kong to attract foreign investment, particularly from Hong Kong, in order to boost up the China's economy. But as it started to grow, Shenzhen is growing much faster than Hong Kong. At the moment, Shenzhen has about 20 million people living there. The Pearl River Delta comprises of 7,000 square kilometers, so much more smaller than the Yangtze River Delta. It consists only of 0.07% in terms of land area, and the population is about 20 million, 3% of the mainland China. So most of the people are located in Shenzhen and Guangzhou, the two large urban centers. It accounted for 19.9% of GDP of China, and accounted for almost 40% of total trade. Now, Hong Kong is a major trading partners for China. I think it's still a number 5 around that. The Shenzhen and Guangzhou are among the most affluent in the Chinese mainland. Of course, the other affluent areas, of course, Shanghai and Beijing. So in 2015, the GDP of Guangzhou is 1.81 trillion yuan in Chinese renminbi. Again, divided by about 5 to get to the Australian dollars. So the Guangzhou's GDP is actually larger than Australia GDP. And then Shenzhen's GDP is 1.75. Hong Kong's GDP is 1.79. So just this Pearl River Delta, its GDP is a couple of times larger than our GDP nationally. So here is a reference to that. In 2016, Australian GDP is 1.205 trillion, again, using the same US Chinese currency as a measurement. So Shenzhen, Hong Kong, or Guangzhou has a GDP larger than the whole of Australia. The cargo throughput, again, Hong Kong has been fighting as a number 1, number 2, number 3 ports in the world until China opened up. Previously, before China's opened up, the largest port is in Singapore, Amsterdam, and Hong Kong. These are the 3 largest ports in the world. They are competing between 1, 2, and 3. And then eventually, Amsterdam is lagging behind, so that Singapore and Hong Kong was running for number 1 or number 2. But as China opened up, now we can see that the Guangzhou port is even handling more traffic than the Hong Kong port. And Shenzhen port is coming into the 3rd, and Zhuhai is a far distance 2nd. But Guangzhou is almost twice the handling capacity at the Hong Kong port. Passenger throughput, Hong Kong still has a much larger throughput compared with the Guangzhou's Baoyuan airports, or the Shenzhen's airport, or the Macau airport. It handles 68.5 million passengers per year. But since 2019, the number of passengers passing through Hong Kong International Airport has dropped by almost 90%. So a lot of traffic is now diverted into Shenzhen because of the 2019 uprising in Hong Kong, and then of course 2020, the world stopped traveling. So Hong Kong International Airport is now running at about 5%, 10% of its capacity in 2016, for example. So Hong Kong suffered quite a lot in terms of passenger throughput its international airport. In terms of talent pool, the Guangzhou has traditionally attracted all talents around China, and then Zhuhai, and then Dongguan. But lately, the talents in China is mostly attracted to Shenzhen. Shenzhen has become a hub for attracting all kinds of technical talents, whereas all the financial talents are attracted towards Shenzhen, and then those with ambition in politics and international affairs will concentrate in Beijing. So we are seeing that happening at the moment, starting to happen. In terms of the number of the money they have, we will see that the total deposit on average saving, Guangzhou is still highest, and then Shenzhen, the rest is much lower. The per capita deposit in Guangzhou is 100,000 around, and Shenzhen 87,000. Is still, Guangzhou is the main attraction area. And Guangzhou is the 5th province with the highest per capita deposits so the people are saving a lot of money, although they are in a very attractive financial business environment where there's a lot of business opportunity. The total consumer sales, Guangzhou is 793 billion, Hong Kong almost half of it. Hong Kong used to have much higher consumer sales volumes. Okay, the major cities, of course, Guangzhou. Before opening this exhibition center, the import-export fair is the largest trading China will do with the rest of the world. Usually they have this spring fair and the autumn fair, and they are handled, all the trade are handled within that two fair in this big space. Nowadays, they changed into much more modern structure, and this is the new fair exhibition center now in Guangzhou. Guangzhou, yes. And this is the panorama of Guangzhou. Unfortunately, these two doesn't match up, so I cannot put them side by side. One is a day, another is night, but they are not match up, so I don't know whether I think they don't match up. And of course, the next one is Shenzhen. Shenzhen has a what's this? This is I think it's population. And the blue part should be what's that? Shenzhen is singled out as the first of the 5 special economic zone, and its only area is initially only 327 kilometers square, and then it's increased. I think this is the population. The blue part is the permanent residents in the city, and the red part is the so-called mobile residents. They come in and go out on a trading situation. It is from Bao'an County, and then it has now becomes the largest city in the Delta, in the Pearl River Delta. Shenzhen also have a stock exchange, and this is stock exchange. Its stock exchange is still smaller, but it is the 4th largest in the East Asia area. It has many successful companies which we know of today: Huawei, Tencent, BYD. BYD used to be a battery manufacturer, but it now is a electric car manufacturer. Konka, I don't know what they made. Skyward, I don't know what they made. Coolpad, I don't know what they made. TPZ is a mobile phone company. TP-Link is also an electronic company. DJI is the drone, making all kinds of drones. BGI is one of those largest genomics institute, and OnePlus is another mobile manufacturer, etc. So Shenzhen is looking at this, is all IT high-tech concentration area. Interestingly, Alibaba is not here. Alibaba's headquarters is in Hangzhou, in the Yangtze River Delta area, not in Shenzhen. It has very close economic cooperation with Hong Kong, and that's one of the reasons why the Shenzhen is selected there, because they want, at that time, China wanted to leverage on Hong Kong's experience, financial, and then management skills and manufacturing skills. So in 2016, there's about 20,000 vehicles crossing every day. And then crossing from Hong Kong to Shenzhen, we need to go through immigration kind of thing, but of course, highly reduced in terms of checking. You just need to use, for me, I just need to use the Hong Kong ID card to get out of Hong Kong, and use the return to China card to go back to China, and then on the way back, reverse the process. Trade with Hong Kong in 2016 is $333 billion US, and most of that, of course, is re-exported.
This is a market we're going to. Walking in, I really highly suggest you just hold the camera down by your side like it's off. They're very strict about no camera policy. It's so busy. A lot of the parts here are remanufactured, recycled. Some are new, some are fake. Replacement batteries and screens for Samsung tablets, backings for Samsung tablets. And then you see back over there, see those big chests of safes over there? All cash. If you want to buy cases for your iPhone to sell like new, you can buy empty boxes. These are just empty boxes they're selling. So this woman is selling iPhone 5Cs, so they're not new but authentic. They're used and recycled. Another guy here swapping out parts casually. All the tools you need to repair phones, like the vacuum chambers, the wire cutters to remove the screens, jigs to like hold everything in place and align up the screens. The incessant cracking of packing tape, that's a sign of a deal closed. And then you pop out here in a suburbia. Welcome to the suburbs.
Oh my gosh, I love Shenzhen.
You can't talk bad about Shenzhen.
Shenzhen started from a fishing village from 300,000 to 10 million.
14 million. 20 million.
No cities in the history of human civilization as we know was able to do this.
深圳为什么成功，就是要拓荒，就是要突破这种盘根错节的束缚，进行改革开放。
Shenzhen is creating more millionaires than any other cities in China.
I mean, they can do everything. The factory of the world, all of them from the 70s.
Europe, US, anywhere else, you're about 9 months behind us when it comes to technology, and that's just a fact.
The model that is being developed in Shenzhen can actually be quite threatening for models that had already been established and very successful in other parts of the world.
I do think that the core tenets of sharing IP that they have is extremely enabling.
It's a cultural change. It will take a while, but the future is possible.
It's not that Silicon Valley got divorced from technology. They're very much about technology. They just kept moving up the stack. And the key thing that drove that, in my opinion, was Moore's Law. Moore's Law is named after Gordon Moore, who was one of the founders of Intel. In like 1960s, he came out with a paper. He predicted that every 2 years, I believe it was, the number of components that could fit in the same piece of silicon would double. And so in 1 year, you could fit 10 transistors in here. 2 years later, it would be like 20, then 40. A decade on, you're talking about like millions and then billions. Imagine you have a printer and you're printing pages and you want to be more efficient. Well, you go from a 12-point font to a 6-point font, fitting twice as many characters on one page, and you're getting twice as much information out of your printer all in one go. And that's literally all Moore's Law has been, is reducing the font size of circuits. In the 70s and 80s, there were many failed research attempts to build parallel computers, like computers that were like, you know, the Cray machines and the thinking machines, 60,000 processors and scale up. And what you found was that if you spent more than 2 years of research time to try and double the performance of your computer, it was by far cheaper just to sit back and wait and let guys like Intel just move Moore's Law ahead and buy the next fastest processor. And so what you found was that actually being in hardware wasn't profitable. And so what really sold products back in the day was features.
One of the things you can do with Windows 98 is similar to the web. You can navigate on your hard drive using the backwards and forwards buttons, just like you would on the web.
The first generation of Windows that would come out and a new generation would be so slow, it'd be completely unusable. And then 2 years later, like, oh, it's actually kind of okay. And then 4 years later, it's like zipping along. It's not because Microsoft made it faster. The computers got faster for free. And so people were able to now not have to worry about writing detailed stuff in C code. They could use high-level languages. They're able to use like web pages, and then JavaScript comes along. And with all of that sort of fervor going on and people chasing that innovation, there was no value in soldering parts. There really wasn't.
In 1983, worldwide sales of personal computers increased 76%. But last year, the increase was only 19%. And this year, analysts predict that sales growth will slow to about 4%. Losses among the two largest home computer makers through June of this year surpassed $600 million.
And that building of stuff had to go to an economy where people were paid a lot less. And what you see is now that Silicon Valley, the whole tech ecosystem is sort of like driven as far as the road goes, and now Moore's Law sort of is ending or ended, and the car is still kind of gliding off the cliff, right? But there's no more road underneath it. and they're like, huh, like computers just aren't getting that much faster anymore. And so now you're seeing people going through a phase of optimization, which is great. But at the same time, people are like, okay, well, how do we differentiate my product, right? Like optimization sucks. That's not a great business model. Because now we have supercomputers in our pocket. Now the question is, what do we do with it, right? And what does that thing in my pocket not already do? And so people are realizing there's niche markets for hardware. We need to have a small accessory. We're going to have like my Fitbit, all these little things, my little digital locks, my smart homes, my sensor networks, the IoT sort of stuff coming up. And they say, great, we need to figure out how to build this. And now they're coming back to this ecosystem and being like, oh, you guys know how to solder. We forgot about that. That's really good. Can you help us build these things?
What should we say? When I was 18, the first time I go to US, I use a trash can and like wood, vacuum cleaner, build the very first ping pong robot. But you want a robot that's just like you, but slightly better, so you always feel challenged. I dropped out from university after first year of college, decided to go for this path. And it's really nice to be in HAX because HAX is the best educator and help you grow.
HAX is a hardware accelerator, the world's first hardware accelerator. We take teams that come in with a proven technology and a prototype and help them to get ready for market launch. We provide $100,000 US. We help them with electrical engineering, design for manufacture, industrial design, mechanical engineering, their market strategy, how they're going to launch. And for that, we take 9% equity in the startups.
I'm Thomas, co-founder of Rovenso. And at Rovenso, we make big robots. We use a kind of spatial joystick. It's usually used in surgery, these things. It's a force feedback joystick. The market that we target is the one of nuclear decommissioning. And what you can see here is a small version of a robot. And now at HAX, we are building the very big version. So you can compare the wheel size. That will be something quite huge. The bigger version of the robot will transport a robotic arm to automate some of the part of the decommissioning work.
Shenzhen's, as everybody now knows, the hardware capital of the world, right? So this has been our home ever since the start. The reason we come here and take the teams here is because of the ecosystem around, which helps them to build products really fast and from initial concept all the way up to final product release into the market.
Neura is a headphone company. We're making the world's first tunable headphones. They work out how you hear and provide the perfect music for you. So I can show you here the hearing profiles of my colleague Luke and my hearing profile. What you can see is that there is this difference at certain frequencies between the way that Luke is sensitive to that particular note or sound, the way that I'm sensitive to it. What our headphones do is sonically mold the sound and make sure that what we hear is not too bassy, it's not too trebly, it sounds balanced, it sounds even, and it sounds the way that it was recorded.
Anybody who's going through research and development, they're better off doing it here because they can get things made so much quicker and so much cheaper. I mean, you try doing something like that in the UK, it will take you around a month, typically, to make something which is specialist from an engineering firm. Here you can do it in a couple of days.
Let's say we completely design a new robot. We can get it out pretty much in a week. Even if there's 10 parts, we can send it out or we can do it ourselves. So you get 10 3D printers to print at the same time, and you get all the parts, put it together, and just fire. I've never seen any prototyping like that when we were in States.
For some of the standard parts, we can order in the morning, and then we get it in the afternoon or the day after. We can get manufactured parts in a few days. In Switzerland, we were planning to do this robot in 9 months. And here we have the opportunity to make it in 3 months. So it's really a race.
If you look back through the years, like obviously Shenzhen became a manufacturing hub very, very quickly. And not that long ago was literally rice paddies.
Academic-wise and in popular media, it's usually summarized in one sentence, which is that Shenzhen was a small sleeping fishing village, and then because it was designated as a special economic zone, it became a metropolis overnight. That singular sentence is what I'm trying to demystify through my work. Today, exactly how many people live in Shenzhen is a mystery. The number 10 million is used more as a reference. So from 300,000 to 10 million, this population grows. No cities in the history of human civilization as we know that was able to do this. Prior to 1980s, China was in a very poor economic state. There was a stagnation of industry. There was a planned economy. No one was allowed to own business. It was a very poor country. The leaders in Beijing have been thinking about what can they do to try to lead the country out of poverty.
当时的这个整个的大陆这边的经济受这种极左思想的束缚，整个经济陷入这种困顿状态。这张图呢，就是反映了当时77年的时候，深圳这个地区和香港那边的这个居民收入的一个对比，差了很多，有10倍的差距。这个人民生活越来越差。这个呢，就是很有名的这一句话，就是邓小平在谈来调研的时候说呢，这是政策有问题，不是部队能管得了的，所以我们要调整这个政策，才实行了改革开放。
They set up the 4 special economic zones, each of them next to a already developed economy. The ambition was simply what can the country do to generate jobs, to generate economy, to feed the people. Essentially, it was a very actually modest intention. Under the planned economy, there was a social safety net. Every person was rationed with food coupons, clothing coupons, electricity coupons. It was only in Shenzhen you can buy a piece of bread with money. To be willing to come to Shenzhen, to the special economic zone, to try to create something else. It attracted people who wanted to have more freedom.
这张照片呢是当时的一个工厂华强那个南洋电子厂。这张照片好，就是当时的工人正好要去上班这个就是当时人民生活面貌的一个反应因为深圳人民对邓小平的感情很深没有小平就没有深圳。当时92年，小平又一次来深圳市场所住的那个宾馆的房间的情况。这一台是深圳的第一台 ATM 机，你把它钱塞进去，马上会出来一个金额你把那个钱整理好之后呢，写张条多少钱，带到这个窗口里面去，后台人员给你处理。它并不是说像现在，当时赋予的它的使命呢，就是技术、知识、对外政策的窗口我们要引进国外的先进的知识和理念所以就是说，在深圳这边先试验成功了，再向这个全国来推广。这是小平说的“摸着石头过河”这个石头就是深圳。
What to me was remarkable about Shenzhen is that even the planners themselves would tell you that the city evolved in a way much bigger and faster than they would have predicted. I think it's overly generalized to think that Shenzhen was nothing, and then with this set up special economic zone, suddenly it became a city. It didn't. There is something else that's not answered simply by top-down planning.
Yes, so good morning. Thank you all for joining me in a discussion about innovation that is happening right here in China. We're investing with you, the developer community. We have been investing in open source solutions because we know that when there are standards and when there are open source offerings, that the pace of technology innovation and the pace of technology adoption accelerates.
I think for the past 100 years, the Industrial Revolution put us into small cages. Consumerism has killed a lot of creativity. But for the post-industrial generation, they should have more freedom to create, to explore, to invent. I think through Maker Movement, we are bringing it back.
So we're here with the MakerBot Cupcake CNC, which is a 3D printer. You can build things like Tom York's head because he actually open sourced the data that was filmed for a video of his. Now, what's also interesting about this whole scenario is that there's a whole thriving community of users who are taking these to build all kinds of different objects. They're sharing the objects online, and additionally, they're sharing information on how to build and improve upon the design. Everything is completely open sourced. The software is open source. The hardware is open source. I just can't wait to see what people come up with.
Okay, I think we are enough with this video. So we move to Hong Kong. Hong Kong is a special administrative region. It is the 7th largest trading entity in the world. And it has its own legal tender, Hong Kong dollars. And the Hong Kong dollars is the 30th most traded currency. And the Hong Kong territory economy is characterized by a very competitive, simple taxation system. Everybody is taxed on your income at a very low rate, and then will cap also at a pretty low rate. I think the cap is about 16%, not 60, 16. I think so. And then the business is also very favorable tax environment as well. The most interesting thing about Hong Kong is that it practices common law system, whereas in mainland China, it practice the standard law system. So the law system are different between Hong Kong and the rest of China. That is one of the most interesting things. Of course, the other special economic zone is special administrative region is Macau. Macau uses the Portuguese law system, which is a standard law system. So Macau law system is quite similar to mainland law system. Hong Kong is very different. It is using common law system. It has a very high common human development index. It is always ranked #1 or #2 in terms of economic freedom by the Canadian institutes. This is the Hong Kong Island side of the Victoria Harbour. This building here is the Hong Kong and Shanghai Bank head office. This is the new World Trade Center in Hong Kong. And then this little one here is the City Hall in Hong Kong. And then, this one is the headquarters of China Bank. And this is the headquarters of Shanghai Bank. Sorry, I mixed up. This is looking from the other side towards Kowloon. So the large building was here. We are looking up towards Jinshaji in this area, and this is the Kowloon area. So this photo is typically taken at the peak of the Hong Kong Island. Another look at the daytime. This time it is facing a little bit more east into, I think this is the area where I grew up. It is in the this region here. Up here is Chuan Shan, where I have when I was studying at my university, I was living in this area. Right down there in the back here is where I grew up. Well, Hong Kong is the 25th largest economy in the world with a nominal GDP of 334 billion US dollars. It is consistently ranked top in the index of economic freedom. Basically, it's always a top, meaning 1 or 2. Hong Kong Stock Exchange, the 3rd largest in Asia, I think is about 4th or 5th largest in the world. and it has a lot of foreign companies having their stock sell and buy in Hong Kong Stock Exchange, especially when this company want to access the China's market. And China also use Hong Kong Stock Exchange as a way of getting capitalization for its Chinese companies. So quite a bit of Chinese companies also list their stock in Hong Kong Stock Exchange. So that's called red chip stock. And then they will usually call H share meaning Hong Kong. And then P is public. The container port, Hong Kong has a very big container port. It was one of the busiest. This is the look of the Hong Kong container port. Hong Kong container port is still human controlled. That means the crane drivers are actually on top of the crane here and driving all the containers, loading and unloading from the ship and then put it onto the trucks. You see the trucks also have a cabin at the beginning, just like our container trucks here. This is around the container port. Obviously, we need to have all the traffic to support the container ports. Hong Kong has very little area, so you will see the container ports put in an irregular position to optimize for space. Another look of the Hong Kong container ports. We can see the trucks there with a driving cabin at the beginning. So this is quite different from the Shanghai port. Another look. And Hong Kong holds a very large shipping register. A lot of ships actually is registered in Hong Kong. Opposite of Hong Kong is Macau. Macau is also another special administrative region. It is a casino and luxury hotels. Its turnover in casinos is about 3 to 5 times that of the casinos in United States. What's that? I think I can't remember the name of the. This is one of the attractions in Macau. A church burned down on the other side. Another look of the Macau city. That landmark is here. Opposite Macau over there, I think it's Zhuhai, which will become a garden city as well as a university city in China. Macau is linked to its opposite side with 3 bridges, and this picture is taken on a plane. This is their casinos. And this is one of the street at night. You will see a lot of this sign here. This is where you can put down your watch for exchange of some money in order to continue gambling. So this is the small long area. You can see a lot of this everywhere because it is a gambling city anyway. Zhuhai, which is next to Macau, will be one of the most livable cities in China. One of the original special economic zones. This one next to Macau, just like Shenzhen is next to Hong Kong. And the strategy is developed into high-tech IT, but compared with Shenzhen, they will be more academic, so that the area opposite of the Pearl River Delta. On one side, we have Hong Kong, Shenzhen, which is very much high-tech and business-oriented. On the other side of the Pearl River Delta, we have Macau, which is a leisure city with gambling as its major income and traveling. And then next to it is Zhuhai, which is the knowledge center, so to speak. So a lot of universities is starting to build up their Zhuhai campus in Zhuhai. And with that, Zhuhai government of course pay a lot of attention to private and secondary educations. in Zhuhai, they have so much money in the local government that all school fees are exempted. This is a view of Zhuhai. Another view.
Welcome to Zhuhai, one of the cleanest and most livable cities in China. Enjoy the clean environment and fresh air as you relax on the coastline, soaking in the great atmosphere. And of course, to connect them up, we have the Hong Kong, Zhuhai, and Macau Bridge, connecting, traveling from Hong Kong, the Lantau Island over to Macau, and then branches here to go to Zhuhai and Macau. It is a bridge tunnel system, costs a lot of money, take a long time to build, but it is now open to traffic. So from Hong Kong, Lantau Island, go through a tunnel here and then go up on the bridge again, and then bridge out from here, one go to the Macau, another part go to Zhuhai. So this is the Hong Kong, Zhuhai, Macau bridge. So this is one of those islands before they merged down in under the sea. I think this is the bridge side coming here, and then the traffic will go under here, going down in the sea, in order to allow large ships to pass through. Because at the end, this road will close off the Pearl River. So because Guangzhou is still one of the largest container ports, they don't want to have any blockage to large ships going over. So they rather have a tunnel underneath it to allow ships to go pass through. So this is one of the view. Some of the smaller ships can pass under the bridge, but for the larger ship, they will have to pass over there when this road go under to the sea. Okay, a little bit longer than usual as I talk, because I think I have a lot of information to show you, and most of the discussion we can actually leave it to next time when I will not be talking so much. But anyway, that's my presentation for the time being. Any other questions? You are welcome. Please unmute yourself. You want to ask any question? Yes, please, Howard. Unmute yourself first. Yes.
Yep. It's a couple of questions, Albert. Thanks again for a terrific presentation. I was just wondering, what is the main motivation for these developments? Is it to to create cities where people can live and in the best way possible, or is it to develop economic regions, economic zones? So that was the first question. Which is the main sort of motivator for what's driving this development? And the other one is in the West, for probably for at least 100 years, with the thrift movement and more recently the minimalist movement and things like that, there is a lot of questioning of sort of development large-scale development at all costs. Is there any of that? It seems as though Chinese people are just absolutely, if they see a problem, they'll just solve it, and twice as much as they need to, if necessary. But is there any sort of anyone in China sort of thinking small?
Okay, two questions. The first is the motivation of these three large zones. Well, as I have explained, for the first zone, the first one, the Beijing, Tianjin, is basically they want to offload some of the population from Beijing in order to lower the living costs in Beijing in order to provide a better service or better efficiency of service. So that's one reason for the Beijing special area. But for the other two, for Shanghai and Hong Kong, yes, they are basically chasing economic development because they were already have some economic development. So they want to leverage that in order to increase as a new zones for development. But at the same time, next time I will touch upon some more current thinking. Remember, these three zones were established about 10 years ago. So they were ongoing projects. Whereas in the coming 14th five-year plan, they are now recognizing the need of development in the middle part of China as well as the western part of China. Now, you notice all these three major zones are in the east coast of China. So that there is a huge economic inequality between the east coast and the rest of China. So the next phase of development, they are going to develop in the middle of China as well as in the west side of China. And I think that's where the One Belt, One Road initiative comes in as well. So in that development, they're not looking at very high speed economic growth. Rather, they are more looking at more sustained double economic growth. What I mean, we'll leave it for next time to explain in terms as best as I can understand their way of doing it. But for these three zones we saw last week and this week, yes, Beijing is for declustering Beijing, but the two zones I showed today is basically for economic development. Now, in terms of China doing everything large, I think the population drive China to make it large because it just cannot do a project small because of the population size. China passed 1.4 billion people at the moment. So for such a large population, you make something small, you're bound to regret, and then you have to redevelop again. So rather than doing that twice or three times, they rather plan it ahead. Maybe in terms of our Western philosophy, we say, okay, we are wasting resources because we will be building something and waiting for people to move in. But in China, that just doesn't matter because, again, as long as they can do it using renminbi, it is printed money. So I think we can also think about that in Australia here. As for example, we talk about our population aging. Yes, China's also had population aging, but if the problem can be solved using Australian dollars, there's no problem. Governments should be able to control its currency, print the money to stimulate local economy. Is the money flowing through within China without external requirement? For example, importing expensive medical equipment, etc. We should be okay because we can do it ourselves. So China is looking in this way. Maybe in the fourth turn, I will talk about the so-called the two different economic circles the Chinese are talking about. One is the domestic circles, moving the economy inside China. And then one is the external circle, participating in the world trade. So I think that will be another topic for the fourth term. The next term, the 3 topics for next term is, I write it down somewhere here. Yep, the first topic will be the Xinjiang Special Economic Autonomous Region and the Uyghur people. The second talk will be the 2030 carbon emission peak and the 2060 carbon neutral plan. And the third, in the third term, will be the parks in China. So that's my plan for next term. And then I can now write down the first one for the fourth term will be the Central China and Western China's development. And then what they mean by sustainable economy. The inner and outer cycles. Yep. Okay. Did I answer a question, Howard? Thank you. Any other question? No? Okay, then. No more question? Okay, then we'll see you next week the same time then. Bye.